The spark of conflict. In the year 2147, humanity had spread across the stars, establishing colonies on distant planets. Earth had become a hub of technology and innovation, leading the charge into the galaxy. Among these colonies was a small outpost on the planet Vespera, a beautiful world filled with vibrant forests and shimmering rivers. The settlers there were mostly scientists, engineers, and families looking for a fresh start. They believed in peace, harmony, and working together for a brighter future. Captain Zura stood on the balcony of the colony's main building, looking out over the landscape. The sun set slowly, casting a warm glow over the horizon. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm. But deep down, Zura knew that peace could be fragile. She was the leader of the colony's defense force, and her job was to ensure the safety of her people. Today, she felt a strange unease, as if something dark was looming just beyond the stars. The following day, life in the colony went on as usual. Children played in the fields, and adults worked in labs, researching new technologies. However, Zara's instincts were on high alert. She gathered her team for a briefing, expressing her concerns. "We need to be prepared for anything," she said, her voice steady but serious. "The galaxy is not as safe as we think. There are forces out there that might see us as easy targets." Ronan, a young and eager soldier, listened closely. He admired Captain Zara and wanted to prove himself. "What do you think could happen, Captain?" he asked. "We have a strong defense system, right?" Zara nodded but remained cautious. "Yes, but we can't rely solely on technology. We must stay vigilant and ready." She dismissed the meeting, urging everyone to keep their guard up. Days passed, and the colony continued to function. But Zara's worries did not fade. One fateful morning, as the settlers enjoyed their breakfast, alarms blared throughout the colony. Zara jumped to her feet, her heart racing. "Everyone, to your stations," she commanded. She rushed to the command center, where the screens displayed a horrifying sight: an alien fleet approaching Vespera. The ships were massive and menacing, their dark hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Zara felt a wave of dread wash over her. "Who are they?" she demanded, her voice firm. A technician at the console quickly responded. "They are the Kilthans, Captain, a ruthless race known for raiding peaceful colonies." Zara's mind raced as she analyzed the situation. The Kilthans were infamous for their brutality. They stripped planets of resources and left destruction in their wake. "We have to defend our home," she shouted, rallying her team. "Activate the defense systems and prepare for combat." As the alarms echoed through the colony, the settlers scrambled to their positions. Zara felt a mix of fear and determination. She knew that their technology was advanced, but the Kilthans had overwhelming numbers. With the fate of the colony hanging in the balance, she had to make a plan. Ronan, who had just joined the defense team, stood by her side. "What can I do to help, Captain?" he asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Zara appreciated his eagerness and replied, "Get to the weapons station and prepare the laser turrets. We need to hold them off as long as we can." With the Kilthans drawing closer, the colony buzzed with activity. The settlers were frightened, but Zara's presence inspired courage. She moved from one station to another, ensuring everyone was ready. The defense systems hummed to life, and the air filled with tension. As the first alien ships entered the planet's atmosphere, Zara's heart raced. She took her position at the command center, watching the screens with a sharp focus. The Kilthans launched their attack, and bright beams of light shot toward the colony. "Fire the turrets," she ordered, her voice commanding. The sound of laser fire filled the air as the settlers fought back against the invaders. Ronan focused on his station, firing the weapons with precision. He felt adrenaline coursing through his veins, and a sense of purpose took over. The battle was fierce, and explosions lit up the sky. Zara's team was putting up a brave fight, but the Kilthans kept coming. Despite their best efforts, the enemy was relentless. The Kilthans began to breach the colony's defenses, and Zara knew they had to think fast. We can't follow their rules. She shouted over the chaos. We need to be unpredictable. She encouraged her team to use guerrilla tactics, relying on creativity rather than strict military strategies. As the battle raged on, Zara noticed a group of Kilthans breaking through the main gate. She quickly rallied a small team, including Ronan, to confront them. Stay close and watch each other's backs, she ordered. Together, they moved stealthily through the chaos, using the terrain to their advantage. The clash was intense, with the Kilthans fighting fiercely. But the humans were resourceful, using their knowledge of the land to outsmart their enemies. Zara felt the surge of hope as they began to push back. They were not going to be defeated easily. As night fell, the battle continued. Zara and her team fought bravely, their spirits unbroken. They were humans, and they did not play by the rules of war. With each victory, they proved that their ingenuity and resilience could shine through even the darkest moments. But deep down, Zara knew this was just the beginning. The Kilthans would not give up easily, and the fight for their home had only just started. The spark of conflict had ignited, and humanity would have to rise to meet the challenge ahead. The galaxy had underestimated them, and they were ready to show the universe what they were capable of. The fight for survival. The battle continued through the night, chaos reigning over the colony as explosions illuminated the dark sky. Captain Zara led her team with fierce determination, refusing to let fear overtake them. They fought against the Kilthans, a relentless wave of enemies that seemed to have no end. The settlers, once focused on peace and research, now found themselves warriors, defending their home against an invading force. As dawn broke, the remnants of the first night's skirmish lay scattered across the colony. Zara took a moment to assess the situation. Their defenses had held, but the Kilthans had made significant progress. The colony's outer perimeter was in ruins, and their enemies had breached the main gate, forcing Zara and her team to regroup. She gathered her team in the command center, urgency clear in her voice. We've held them off for now, but we need a new plan. They are stronger in numbers, but we can't let that stop us. We have to use our environment to our advantage, Zara said, her eyes scanning the faces of her team, each one filled with determination. Ronan stepped forward, still buzzing with adrenaline from the previous night's fight. Captain, what if we set traps around the perimeter? We could use the terrain to funnel them into a narrow area, making it easier to defend. His idea sparked a glimmer of hope among the group. Good thinking, Ronan, Zara replied, appreciating his initiative. Let's split up into teams. One group will create traps, while the other focuses on reinforcing our defenses. We need to slow them down. The team dispersed, each member knowing the stakes were high. As they worked, Zara felt a surge of pride. The settlers were coming together, adapting to the chaos and rising to the challenge. They were learning to fight as a unit, turning their fear into strength. Ronan teamed up with a group of engineers. They scavenged materials from the damaged structures to create makeshift traps. They set up barriers and concealed sharp spikes in the ground, designing a trap that would catch any Kilthans who tried to advance. The settlers worked quickly, motivated by the desire to protect their home and loved ones. As the sun reached its peak, the Kilthans regrouped for another attack. Their ships hovered ominously above the colony, casting shadows over the settlement. Zara stood at the command center, her heart racing as she observed the enemy's movements. They're preparing for a full-scale assault, she shouted, urgency in her voice. Ronan, now armed with a laser rifle, felt a mixture of fear and excitement. What's the plan, Captain? He asked, ready for action. Zara took a deep breath, her mind racing with strategies. We'll use the traps to our advantage. Once they enter the perimeter, we'll draw them in and hit them with everything we have. Her voice was firm, instilling confidence in her team. As the Kilthans advanced, the settlers took their positions. Zara watched as the enemy moved closer to their traps. She signaled for silence, heart pounding in anticipation. The moment of truth had arrived. When the Kilthans crossed the perimeter, Zara shouted, "Now!" The settlers sprang into action, activating the traps. Sharp spikes erupted from the ground, catching several Kilthans off guard. Their screams echoed as they stumbled into the concealed pitfalls, momentarily halting their advance. Ronan opened fire alongside his teammates, laser beams cutting through the air. The Kilthans, now wary, hesitated, but they quickly regrouped, charging at the settlers with renewed fury. Zara felt a wave of adrenaline as she joined the fight, laser rifle in hand, firing at the enemy. The battle raged on, the sounds of laser fire and battle cries mingling in the air. The settlers fought fiercely, determination burning in their hearts. Each victory felt like a triumph over the odds, but the Kilthans were relentless. They pressed on, driven by their ruthless nature. In the midst of the chaos, Zara spotted a group of Kilthans attempting to flank her team. "Ronan, we need to cut them off," she shouted, pointing toward the approaching threat. Without hesitation, Ronan rallied a few soldiers and rushed toward the flank. They moved swiftly, cutting off the Kilthans before they could reach the heart of the colony. Ronan felt the weight of his weapon in his hands, his determination solidifying with every step. They confronted the Kilthans head-on, engaging in fierce hand-to-hand combat. As the battle unfolded, Zara felt the tide of the fight beginning to shift. The settlers were gaining ground, working together to push back the invaders. Their resilience was commendable, and for the first time, Zara felt a flicker of hope. However, the Kilthans were not about to back down. The enemy leader, a towering figure with a fearsome presence, rallied his troops with a fierce battle cry. Zara's heart sank as she realized that their opponent would fight with everything they had. Zara quickly strategized. "We need to take out their leader," she shouted to her team. "If we can weaken their morale, we might be able to turn the tide." Ronan nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "Let's do it, Captain." With that, they regrouped, forming a small strike team to confront the enemy leader head-on. As they advanced, the air crackled with tension. Zara's heart raced as they neared the fierce warrior, who was engaged in combat with several of their fellow settlers. The fight was brutal, but the settlers pressed on, each one fighting for their home. Ronan charged forward, his weapon raised. The enemy leader noticed him and turned with a snarl. The two clashed in a fierce battle, laser blasts and physical strikes echoing in the air. Zara joined the fray, supporting Ronan as they fought against the formidable opponent. Together, they fought with everything they had, drawing on their training and instincts. The struggle felt endless, but Zara and Ronan were fueled by their determination to protect their people. With one final push, they combined their efforts, launching a powerful attack that caught the Kilthan leader off guard. The impact was staggering. The enemy leader stumbled back, losing his balance. In that moment of weakness, Zara seized the opportunity and struck. The Kilthan fell, and with him, the morale of his troops began to falter. As the enemy's formation crumbled, the settlers took heart. The Kilthans, now realizing they could be defeated, began to retreat. Zara felt a surge of triumph wash over her. They had fought bravely and survived against all odds. The battle ended with the settlers victorious, but not without cost. They gathered their wounded, and as they took a moment to breathe, Zara knew this was just one fight in a much larger war. But for now, they had proven that they could stand strong, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sun began to set once more, Zara looked out over the remnants of the battle, pride swelling in her chest. They were humans, and when it came to war, they had shown that they didn't just play by the rules. They created their own. The unexpected ally. After the battle, the colony was quiet, but the air was thick with tension. The settlers were exhausted, and many were mourning their fallen friends. Captain Zora walked among her people, offering words of comfort and encouragement. She knew that they had won a crucial victory, but the war was far from over. Ronan, still buzzing with adrenaline from the fight, approached Zora as she spoke with a group of settlers. "Captain, we need to gather more information about the Kilthans. We have to understand their strategy if we want to survive the next attack," he said, concern etched on his face. Zora nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "You're right. We need to send scouts to track their movements and learn more about their forces. If we can anticipate their next move, we might have a chance to prepare." As they discussed their next steps, a faint rumble echoed in the distance. The ground shook slightly, and the settlers paused, eyes wide with fear. "What is that?" one of them whispered, glancing nervously at Zora. "Stay alert," Zora ordered, her instincts kicking in. It could be more Kilthans. But as the rumbling grew louder, it became clear that it was something else entirely. Out of the thick clouds of dust, a massive vehicle emerged, unlike anything they had seen before. It was a hulking machine, armored and rugged, with insignia markings that were unfamiliar to them. "What in the universe is that?" Ronan exclaimed, squinting against the dust. As the vehicle drew closer, it came to a halt at the edge of the colony. The hatch opened with a hiss, and from it emerged a figure. Tall and imposing, the newcomer wore heavy armor and a helmet that obscured their face. The settlers watched with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The figure raised their hand, signaling for silence. "I come in peace," a deep voice resonated from the armored figure. "I am Commander Voss, leader of the Harkonians." Zora exchanged a glance with Ronan, unsure of whether to trust this unexpected visitor. "What do you want?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "I have heard of your battle against the Kilthans," Voss replied. "We have been watching from afar. Your bravery has impressed us. The Harkonians are also enemies of the Kilthans, and we wish to form an alliance." Ronan's eyes widened in surprise. "You want to help us?" "Yes," Voss affirmed. "We have advanced technology and strategies that could aid your colony. Together, we can push the Kilthans back and protect both our peoples." Zora was cautious but intrigued. "And what do you want in return?" she asked, her mind racing. It was crucial to understand their motives. Voss paused, contemplating his words. "We seek not just to defeat the Kilthans, but to find a new home. Our own world was devastated in the war. If we can ally with you, we can share resources and ensure our survival." The settlers murmured among themselves, uncertainty hanging in the air. Zara took a deep breath, weighing the risks. "We need time to discuss this. Trust is not given lightly." "Understood," Voss replied, nodding respectfully. "I will wait here while you deliberate." As Zora and Ronan gathered their fellow settlers, the weight of the decision pressed heavily on her. "This could change everything," Ronan whispered, glancing back at the commander. "We could gain access to technology that we couldn't even dream of." "But can we trust them?" Zara replied, her brow furrowed in thought. "The Harkonians could be deceiving us. What if they are playing us against the Kilthans?" After a long discussion, Zara decided to take a calculated risk. "We'll invite Commander Voss to meet with the leaders of our colony. We need to hear more about his people and their capabilities. But we must remain vigilant." With the decision made, Zara returned to Voss, who stood patiently by the vehicle. "We will consider your offer, Commander. Please tell us more about your people and how you can help." The settlers murmured among themselves, uncertainty hanging in the air. Zara took a deep breath, weighing the risks. "We need time to discuss this. Trust is not given lightly." "Understood," Voss replied, nodding respectfully. "I will wait here while you deliberate." As Zora and Ronan gathered their fellow settlers, the weight of the decision pressed heavily on her. "This could change everything," Ronan whispered, glancing back at the commander. "We could gain access to technology that we couldn't even dream of." "But can we trust them?" Zara replied, her brow furrowed in thought. "The Harkonians could be deceiving us. What if they are playing us against the Kilthans?" After a long discussion, Zara decided to take a calculated risk. "We'll invite Commander Voss to meet with the leaders of our colony. We need to hear more about his people and their capabilities. but we must remain vigilant. With the decision made, Zara returned to Voss, who stood patiently by the vehicle. "We will consider your offer, Commander. Please tell us more about your people and how you can help." Voss's demeanor shifted as he sensed the opportunity. "We have advanced weaponry and combat techniques. I can share our knowledge of the Kilthan forces, their weaknesses and their strategies. Together, we can craft a plan to drive them away from your world." The meeting took place in the colony's command center. Settlers gathered around as Voss detailed the Harkonian technology, showcasing their weaponry and defense systems. He explained the Kilthan tactics they had observed, highlighting their vulnerabilities. Zara listened intently, taking notes as Voss spoke. She could see her people's interest peaking, the hope of a potential ally beginning to take root. "We can build a defensive line using your technology combined with our local knowledge," she suggested. Voss nodded in agreement. "Yes, and with the element of surprise, we can strike at the heart of their operation. If we act quickly, we can disrupt their next move." The settlers began to buzz with excitement, the promise of a potential victory drawing them together. They spent hours discussing strategies, sharing ideas, and forming a plan to confront the Kilthans. Zara felt a sense of unity growing among her people, fueled by the possibility of a future. As the meeting concluded, Zara approached Voss. "Thank you for your willingness to share your knowledge. We may have found a way to defeat the Kilthans together." "We will do whatever it takes," Voss replied, determination shining in his eyes. "The Kilthans will learn that they cannot invade and conquer our worlds. Together, we will show them that humanity and the Harkonians will fight back." That night, the settlers and Harkonians worked side by side, forging alliances and sharing their strengths. Zara felt a renewed sense of purpose as they prepared for the next battle. Together, they were stronger than before, united against a common enemy. The dawn of a new day broke over the colony, casting light on the determined faces of the settlers and their newfound allies. Zara knew that challenges lay ahead, but now they were no longer alone. With the Harkonians at their side, they were ready to face whatever came next. The calm before the storm. With the alliance between the settlers and the Harkonians solidified, a sense of determination filled the air. Captain Zara and Commander Voss worked closely, strategizing their next move against the Kilthans. The settlers busily prepared their defenses, and the Harkonians shared their advanced technology to bolster the colony's resources. In the days that followed, the colony transformed. New defensive structures rose up, constructed from the durable materials provided by the Harkonians. The settlers learned to operate new weapon systems, training tirelessly to ensure everyone could contribute. Zara watched as her people grew more confident, their spirits lifted by the prospect of victory. One afternoon, as the sun hung high in the sky, Zara gathered her team in the command center. Maps and holographic displays filled the room, showing the layout of the colony and the known movements of the Kilthans. Ronan, now a vital part of the planning, stood beside her. "Today, we finalize our strategy," Zara announced, her voice steady. "The Kilthans will not expect a coordinated attack from both our forces. We need to exploit their weaknesses and hit hard." Voss stepped forward, adjusting the holographic display to show the Kilthan encampment. "Our scouts have reported that they have become complacent after their last victory. They will not anticipate our response. This is our opportunity." Ronan pointed to a cluster of dots on the map. "If we strike here, we can cut off their supply lines. It will force them to retreat or face us head-on." Zara nodded, her heart racing with anticipation. "Let's also send a small team to gather more intel. We need to understand their movements before we engage." As the plan solidified, excitement buzzed through the room. Each member of the team felt the weight of the impending confrontation. They were ready to fight, united by a common goal. However, as night fell over the colony, a sense of foreboding settled in. Zara couldn't shake the feeling that the calm before the storm was more than just a lull. As she stepped outside to take in the starry sky, she felt the weight of uncertainty creeping back. Ronan joined her, sensing her unease. "What's on your mind, Captain?" he asked, leaning against the wall beside her. Zara sighed, glancing at the horizon. "I worry that we may have underestimated the Kilthans. They are brutal and unpredictable. We have to be ready for anything." "I understand," Ronan replied, his expression serious. "But we've prepared for this. We're not the same settlers they faced before. We've trained, we've grown stronger. We have allies now." Zara smiled faintly, appreciating his optimism. "You're right. We have each other, and we have the Harkonians. But we must remain vigilant. Complacency can be our downfall." The night passed slowly with the settlers on high alert. Every rustle in the bushes and every distant sound set their nerves on edge. But as dawn broke, the tension began to dissolve. The settlers gathered, ready to execute their plan. The two forces, Harkonians and settlers, lined up along the perimeter of the colony, their hearts pounding in unison. Zara stood at the forefront, her gaze sweeping over her people and their new allies. She felt a surge of pride in their determination. "Today, we fight not just for our colony, but for our very survival," she shouted, her voice carrying through the ranks. "Together, we are strong. We will show the Kilthans that they cannot take what is ours." A roar of approval erupted from the crowd, and Zara felt the energy of hope and courage wash over her. With a final rallying cry, they prepared to move out. As the group advanced, they moved with purpose, every soldier aware of their role in the plan. Voss led the Harkonians, their advanced weaponry glinting in the sunlight. Zara stayed close to Ronan, their eyes scanning the terrain ahead for any sign of the enemy. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet, and an explosion erupted in the distance. Dust and debris flew into the air, followed by the unmistakable sounds of Kilthan war machines. "They're here," Ronan shouted, adrenaline surging through him. Zara took a deep breath, her instincts kicking in. "We need to stay focused. Remember the plan. Move to your positions." The settlers and Harkonians spread out, forming a defensive line against the approaching Kilthan forces. Zara could see the hulking shapes of Kilthan war machines lumbering toward them, their weapons primed for destruction. In that moment, fear gave way to determination. The settlers, once frightened and unprepared, stood shoulder to shoulder with their new allies. They were ready to face the storm together. As the Kilthan forces advanced, Zara felt her heart racing. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment that would show the galaxy that humanity would not back down. Together, they would fight for their survival. The calm was shattered, replaced by the roar of battle cries and the thunder of weapons firing. It was time to see if their preparation would pay off. The clash of titans. The battlefield erupted in chaos as the Kilthan forces surged forward. Their massive war machines, armed with deadly energy weapons, illuminated the sky with bursts of destructive fire. Captain Zara's heart raced as she took in the sight of the approaching enemy, her instincts kicking into high gear. "Hold the line," Zara shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. She could feel the energy of the crowd behind her, the settlers and Harkonians standing united in their defense of the colony. "Focus on your targets." Ronan, now positioned beside Zara, gripped his weapon tightly. "They're coming in fast. We need to take out those machines before they reach our defenses." The settlers and Harkonians had trained hard, and it showed. As the first Kilthan war machines drew near, they opened fire with a hail of bullets and energy blasts. The sound of gunfire mingled with the roar of explosions, creating a symphony of warfare. Zara watched as one of the Kilthan machines staggered under the weight of their fire, smoke billowing from its exterior. "Keep pushing. Don't let up," she commanded, adrenaline fueling her every word. The Kilthans responded with their own onslaught, their weapons firing back with deadly accuracy. A bright beam of energy struck a nearby structure, causing it to crumble into a heap of debris. Zara ducked instinctively as fragments flew past her. "Get the civilians to safety," she yelled to Ronan, her heart heavy with the thought of their people being caught in the crossfire. "We can't let them get hurt." Ronan nodded, already moving toward a nearby group of settlers who were huddled together, fear etched on their faces. "Follow me. We need to move to the shelter," he urged, leading them away from the chaos. Zara turned her focus back to the fight, where the Kilthans were regrouping and pushing forward. The settlers had to hold their ground. "Voss," she called out, spotting the Harkonian commander nearby. "We need to flank them. Can your troops move to the left?" Voss nodded, his expression fierce. "We'll create a diversion. Harkonians with me." He rallied his troops and led them into a flanking maneuver, drawing the Kilthans' attention away from Zara's position. As Voss's forces charged, Zara seized the moment. "Now, hit them hard," she shouted to her fellow settlers, firing her weapon with precision. The Kilthans, caught off guard, struggled to respond as the combined forces of humans and Harkonians surged forward. The battle raged on, with each side suffering losses. Zara felt a mix of fear and determination wash over her. She was acutely aware that this fight was not just for their lives, but for the very future of the colony. The Kilthans would not be allowed to take what they had built. Amid the chaos, Zara spotted Ronan, guiding a group of settlers to safety. He was working tirelessly to protect their people while still trying to fight. She admired his bravery, but knew they needed him on the front lines. "Ronan," she called out, waving him over. "We need you here. You're too valuable to be behind the lines." He glanced at her, concern flickering in his eyes. "I can't leave them unprotected." Zara felt her heart race as another explosion rocked the ground. "We'll handle this. Trust me. We need your skills to push back the Kilthans. We can't let them advance." After a moment's hesitation, Ronan nodded, determination replacing his doubts. "All right. Let's do this." He moved to her side, ready to fight. The two charged forward, joining their comrades in the thick of battle. The Kilthans were relentless, their forces pressing forward as they sought to break the human line. But Zara and Ronan fought with everything they had, the settlers holding fast against the tide of Kilthan aggression. In the heat of the battle, Zara caught sight of Voss, leading a charge against a particularly massive Kilthan machine. His soldiers coordinated their attacks, striking at its weak points. She felt a surge of pride in their teamwork. But just as victory seemed within reach, a deafening roar echoed through the air. A new wave of Kilthan reinforcements arrived, their war machines towering over the battlefield like dark shadows. "Retreat! Fall back!" Zara shouted, panic rising in her chest. They had pushed hard, but this new wave threatened to overwhelm them. The settlers began to pull back, forming a defensive line around their retreating comrades. The Harkonians fought valiantly, but the sheer number of Kilthans was daunting. Zara could feel her heart pounding as she rallied her people. "Stay together. We can regroup at the command center," she yelled, urgency in her tone. "Don't break formation." As they fell back, Zara's mind raced with possibilities. They needed to regroup and come up with a new plan. The Kilthans had underestimated their resilience, but now they were proving to be a formidable foe. Finally, they reached the command center, breathless and shaken. Zara glanced around, assessing the situation. Ronan stood beside her, breathing heavily, his expression grim. "We need to regroup and come up with a new strategy," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Zara nodded, determination igniting within her. "We will not give up. We will find a way to turn the tide. We are stronger together." The settlers and Harkonians gathered, their faces marked by determination. They had fought hard, but the battle was far from over. Together, they would find a way to defeat the Kilthans and protect their home. As the echoes of battle faded, a sense of unity and purpose settled among them. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other. The next phase of their battle awaited, and they would face it together, no matter the odds. The plan of resistance. As the dust settled in the command center, the atmosphere was tense yet charged with a sense of determination. Captain Zara stood at the front, her heart racing as she looked over the gathered settlers and Harkonians. They were weary but resolute, and she knew they needed a plan to confront the Kilthan threat head-on. "Listen up, everyone," Zara called, her voice echoing in the makeshift command center. "We've fought hard, and we've lost good people today, but we're still here. We have one chance to turn this battle around, and we need to do it together." Ronan stepped forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "We know the Kilthans will regroup after their last attack. They'll be looking to finish what they started. We need to catch them off guard." Zara nodded, grateful for Ronan's quick thinking. "Exactly. We need to find a way to exploit their weaknesses. They're overconfident after pushing us back, and we can use that to our advantage." Voss, the Harkonian commander, chimed in. "We have limited resources, and our forces are stretched thin. If we want to make an impact, we'll need to target their command center. Disrupting their leadership could buy us valuable time." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement. Disrupting the Kilthan command center would not only demoralize their forces, but also provide the settlers a chance to reclaim some territory. But Zara knew they had to act quickly. "Let's split our forces," Zara suggested. "We can send a small group to create a distraction, while the rest of us flank the command center. This way, we can hit them hard from both sides." Ronan's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "I can lead the distraction team. If we can draw their attention away from the command center, you'll have a clear shot." Zara glanced around at her people, gauging their reactions. "Who's with us?" she asked, her heart swelling with pride as several hands shot up. "I'll go," one of the settlers said, a determined look in her eyes. "We can't let them take our home." "Me too," shouted another. "I've got a score to settle with those machines." Zara felt a surge of hope. These were brave individuals, ready to stand together against a common foe. "All right," she said, a fierce smile on her face. "We'll move at first light. Get some rest, and gather what supplies you can. This is our moment to take back what's ours." As the group dispersed to prepare, Zara felt a sense of unity among them. They were more than just individuals fighting for survival. They were a community standing together, ready to reclaim their future. The next morning, the sky was painted in hues of orange and red, signaling the dawn of a new day. Zara gathered her team, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. Ronan stood beside her, his expression one of determination. "Remember, our goal is to distract the Kilthans," Zara reminded them. "We need to create chaos around their command center while the rest of the team moves in for the attack. Stay focused, and stick to the plan." With a nod, they set off toward the Kilthan camp, moving quietly through the trees. The air was thick with tension, but Zara's heart raced with a sense of purpose. They were about to take control of their fate. As they approached the Kilthan encampment, the sound of mechanical whirring filled the air. Zara spotted the command center in the distance, a massive structure surrounded by towering Kilthan machines. She gestured for her team to hold back and observe. "Looks like they're not expecting an attack," Ronan whispered, his eyes fixed on the command center. "We have a chance." Zara nodded, adrenaline pumping through her veins. "Let's create some noise." She turned to her team, a fierce determination in her voice. "When I say go, we'll launch our distraction." As they prepared, Zara took a deep breath, mentally preparing herself for what was about to unfold. "Go," she shouted, and they sprang into action. The team threw grenades and set off smoke bombs, creating a cloud of confusion and chaos around the Kilthan camp. Alarms blared as the Kilthan soldiers scrambled to respond, their attention drawn away from the command center. "Now, move," Ronan shouted, leading the charge toward the command center while the rest of the team created as much disruption as possible. Zara felt the thrill of battle surge through her, pushing her forward. As they neared the command center, Zara could see the panic spreading among the Kilthans. They were disorganized, their forces scrambling to respond to the unexpected attack. It was a perfect opportunity. "Flank them," Zara yelled, directing her team as they surrounded the command center. The sight of her fellow settlers charging forward filled her with pride and determination. They'd fought fiercely, firing their weapons and using every resource they had. Zara felt the tide of the battle shift, their unity proving to be a formidable force against the Kilthan machines. But just as victory seemed within reach, a massive Kilthan war machine emerged from the chaos, its weapons primed and ready. Zara's heart sank as she realized they were facing a new threat. "Get back," she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "We need to regroup." But the Kilthan machine opened fire, and explosions rocked the area, sending debris flying. Zara ducked behind cover, her heart racing as she looked for a way to rally her team. "Stay focused," she yelled, determination fueling her voice. "We can't let this machine stop us." With a fierce resolve, Zara raised her weapon and aimed for the machine's weak points. She could see Ronan doing the same, his expression set in determination. Together, they would fight for their home. The final stand. The battle raged on, the sounds of gunfire and explosions echoing through the air. Captain Zora crouched behind a pile of rubble, her heart pounding as she surveyed the chaos around her. The massive Kilthan war machine loomed ahead, its relentless firepower wreaking havoc among her forces. She knew they had to act fast or risk losing everything. "Ronan," she called, spotting him crouched beside her. Determination etched on his face. "We need to find a way to take that thing down. It's pushing us back." "I've got an idea," Ronan replied, a spark of inspiration igniting in his eyes. "If we can distract it, I can slip around and hit its weak spot from behind. We just need to keep its attention off me." Zara nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "We'll create a diversion. If we can draw its fire toward us, you'll have a clear shot to flank it." "Right. Let's do this," Ronan said, gripping his weapon tightly. They shared a determined glance before moving into action. Zora rallied her fellow fighters, her voice rising above the din of battle. "Listen up. We need to draw that machine's fire, create as much noise as possible, and let's keep its focus on us." Her words inspired the settlers and Harkonians around her. They shouted battle cries, firing their weapons into the air and throwing whatever they could find at the war machine. Smoke bombs were thrown, creating a thick cloud that obscured their movements. As the Kilthan machine turned its attention toward them, Zara felt a surge of adrenaline. "Now, Ronan, go." Ronan sprinted toward the machine's flank, using the smoke to his advantage. Zara watched as he moved with purpose, his eyes focused on the enemy. She knew he had to succeed. The fate of their mission depended on it. The war machine fired wildly, its powerful blasts illuminating the smoke. Zara ducked and dodged, doing everything she could to keep the Kilthans distracted. Her heart raced as she realized how close they were to either victory or defeat. "Keep it busy," she shouted to her team, who were doing their best to keep the machine occupied. Zara peeked around cover, scanning for Ronan. He had to be close. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ground nearby, and Zara stumbled back. Regaining her footing, she looked for Ronan again, and relief washed over her as she spotted him just behind the Kilthan machine. He was ready to strike. "Now," Zora shouted, and her team poured fire toward the war machine, drawing its focus completely away from Ronan. With a determined charge, Ronan rushed forward, leaping onto a lower platform of the Kilthan machine. He climbed with agility, his movements swift and calculated. As he reached the top, he pulled out a small device, a homemade explosive designed to penetrate the machine's armor. Zara's heart raced as she watched Ronan place the device near the machine's vulnerable point. "Come on, Ronan," she whispered, her eyes wide with hope. The Kilthan machine turned, sensing something was amiss. It fired blindly into the smoke, its shots echoing as they ricocheted off surrounding structures. Zara felt the heat of one explosion nearby, but kept her focus on Ronan. "Now!" she yelled as he pressed the detonator. A blinding flash erupted from the machine's weak point, and a massive explosion followed. The war machine shuddered violently, smoke billowing from its core as its systems began to fail. Zara's heart soared as she saw Ronan tumble from the explosion, landing safely on the ground. "Zara," he shouted, running toward her. "We did it." But the battle was not over yet. As the Kilthan machine collapsed, the remaining Kilthan soldiers began to retreat, their morale shattered. The settlers cheered, their spirits lifting as they saw their victory. "Push forward," Zora commanded, leading her team as they charged after the retreating Kilthans. "We can't let them regroup." With renewed energy, the settlers pursued their enemy, their hearts united in the fight for their home. Zara felt a sense of pride swell within her as she fought alongside her comrades. They were no longer just survivors, they were warriors. The Kilthans scattered, their once formidable force crumbling under the pressure of the settlers' united front. As the dust began to settle, Zara found herself standing beside Ronan, who wore a triumphant smile. "We did it, Zara," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. "We actually did it." "Yes, we did," she replied, her voice filled with relief and joy. "But we can't stop now. We need to secure the area and make sure they don't come back." Together, they rallied their forces, securing the battlefield and ensuring that the Kilthans could not launch another attack. The settlers had proven their strength and resilience, fighting back against an overwhelming foe. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the battlefield, Zara looked out at her fellow fighters. They were weary but victorious, their spirits high despite the challenges they had faced. "Today, we've shown them what we're made of," Zara declared, her voice strong and proud. "We fought together, and together, we will continue to protect our home." Cheers erupted from the crowd, their voices echoing into the evening. Zara smiled, knowing that they had not only survived, but had also forged a new destiny for themselves. In that moment, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, she understood that the fight for their future was just beginning. With their newfound strength and unity, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to defend their world against any threat.